Coming from the pen of Graham Goring and with a beautiful soundtrack composed by David Fenn, Mark Foster and Fenn have created something a little bit special here with this Unity-driven action-adventure that carefully embraces dark humour while still telling a compelling and emotive narrative, with the topical themes such as life and death coexisting with themes relating to family and betrayal. How exactly did a two-man team during the height of the pandemic manage to bring us this, and why should you most certainly be a little bit excited? Well, let's find out. I don't remember another time where the main protagonist is a crow, let alone one who reaps souls for a living. The Reaping Commission headquarters are your employer, and they'll quickly set you about the task at hand, that of assisting certain individuals into the afterlife. They carry giant souls, 3 of which are required as the narrative diverges, and you will discover corruption at the lowest level. As far as gameplay and controls go, what initially appears as a standard action-adventure combines puzzle elements, smart level design, and more than a doff of the cap to classics of old. You control your character with the left stick. Pressing the B button allows you to roll, and you can chain attacks together. This isn't a Souls-like, it doesn't have a stamina-based combat system, although there are some similarities. Most of the enemies that you'll face within a stage have a very specific method through which you should dispatch them. Not only do you have your main melee attacks, you start out with a ranged bow and later gain some more magics, and even a grapple hook style weapon. In order to maintain momentum in combat, your ranged attacks are actually recharged by doing damage to enemies, and each hit on an enemy or breakable item will restore one of these, and then dealing distant death will reduce that by 1. It's a smart system, and like many things in Death's Door, feels very well refined and thought out. It makes for exciting combat without the need to have to worry about things like parrying, and there are several main weapons that you unlock throughout the 8 to 10 hour adventure, which change up the gameplay style. The fast-paced Death from a Thousand Cuts dual blades, for example, or the slightly less appealing umbrella, but each weapon has its own statistics, swing speed, as well as damage numbers to help you decide what to go with, and certain enemies are more easily taken out with certain weapons. The Commission headquarters is the hub area that ties the whole experience together. When you're out on adventure reaping souls, looking for the grand soul in each stage, of which you'll initially be tasked with finding 3, you'll discover doors which allow you to quickly travel back to this area. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, the souls that you collect from each of your downed opponents, and yeah, it's always souls, isn't it? Oh well, at least they didn't put it in the title. These souls are used as currency to upgrade your character. Areas such as strength and dexterity can all be upgraded, or you might focus on speed and magic. I mentioned initially how well designed the stages are. Now, I believe it wanted to create a sense of exploration, and as such you won't find a mapping system, and that's really difficult to get right. Invariably, there'll always be some players who find themselves getting slightly lost, but you will find signposts throughout the world which will always point you in the direction of your next objective. But through a few Metroidvania elements, you'll actually unlock abilities which allow you to access further areas of the map, discovering new areas or secret items. The final component to Death's Door are its puzzles. They're generally not overly complex, but they do have that intangible quality that make you feel smart, that little self-high-five moment of, oh yeah, I figured that out. It's a far more difficult quality to nurture within a game than you might expect. Interspersed between the combat and puzzling are several narrative elements, and it's the expertly written tertiary characters that were most impressive. Not the main character or even the side ones within the story, but the smaller ones that pop up in unusual locations that you might not even give the time to, but that if you do, you realise small details, such as the chef who's actually using a dead body as a disguise, and who is in fact a giant octopus. There's a certain Britishness to the humour, which likes to carefully embrace the macabre, and I love it. Each stage is a nice balance of exploration and maintaining your health, although you will find small seeds which can be planted in these areas, and they allow for the restoration of HP and usually precede a difficult area or fight. They're smartly and sporadically placed, and they do a good job of mitigating what otherwise would be quite frustrating as the difficulty notches up. But you will still die a lot. It just doesn't take long to get back to where you were. I love that this slice of escapism was created during such a dark time. It has a standout layer of polish and quality, with each location being so unique, and small touches such as the text on screen, even the blunt and conclusive death sequence, they smack of attention to detail. As far as negatives, well, there will be some people, regardless of how well designed the levels are, who don't like the fact it doesn't have a mapping system, but that's clutching at straws with the way the world's designed. And most importantly, it's just a whole lot of fun, without outstaying its welcome. I give the gameplay 18 out of 20. Controls are really responsive. I personally would like some camera control, although in its defense it automatically shifts sometimes when you find certain secret areas. Controls also score 18 out of 20. Visually, Death's Door is a stunning game. It makes brilliant use of the Unity engine, and bar a few stutters in latter areas, it performs excellently on the Switch. It's nice to be able to just say it runs really smoothly in docked and handheld, and to be able to concentrate on the artistic direction for once. Artists Justin Chan, Sarah Morris, Juan Abad de la Riva, and Fritz Olsen have chiefly used light, dark, and shadow to give the slightly lower poly world a real sense of presence. Now, the Nintendo Switch version doesn't have the shallow depth of field that we see on PC, and a couple of other smaller effects have been removed to maintain the frame rate, but it still looks great, particularly when you're playing in handheld. There's a real freshness to the art direction, and the juxtaposition between that commission headquarters, which uses that lovely grayscale black and white contrast, and something like the eye-popping jungle area straight out of Zelda, are very impressive. My favourite visual aspect though, your main character. Yes, he's a crow, but he really does move like one. Someone can be regaling him with the most legendary tale, and his head's twitching away as if his attention has just been caught by a nice juicy worm. It's a really funny game. Hopefully you recognise the composer David Fenn for his work on Moonlighter. That's one of my favourite soundtracks of all time, and his work here is equally impressive. From an audio standpoint, my only critique would be a lack of narration. It's not bad without narration, but these visually striking characters maybe would have benefited from it. However, I think leaving the main protagonist silent is actually a positive here. He is, after all, bird. Performance needs a couple of tweaks in certain areas, but overall it's very good, and for Unity, this is probably one of the best on Switch. The use of lighting and shadows is excellent. Visuals and performance score 17 out of 20, and audio scores 19 out of 20. Death's Door will cost you £17.99 or your regional equivalent, and took around about 8 hours to finish. And it is worth noting that you can strive for a second, slightly better ending, the true ending, and this requires you to go on a little bit of a treasure hunt, but is definitely worth it. For the quality on offer here, I think £17.99 is very reasonable, and having recently completed a couple of games that just dragged on, Last of Us 2, it's nice to have a concise, well-designed package that I can actually finish. Difficulty levels are just right, so you won't find yourself overly frustrated, and that coincides with slick puzzles, nice design, and a good handful of secret areas to look for. Thankfully, I can say that there is a physical version arriving. You can pre-order those now, and they'll be available between December the 9th and January the 21st, and that's through Special Reserve Games. Obviously, you're going to pay a premium there. It would have been nice if this just had a standard release, but Death's Door really is worth it, physically or digitally. I give value 19 out of 20. The second I saw David Fenn was part of this experience, I kind of knew I'd love it. For me, audio is a huge part of a game, and when combined with artists as good as this, and that dark humour that makes you laugh at things you probably shouldn't, all lovingly draped with excellent combat, well, it's a win. It gets a SwitchUp score of 91%. Let me know down in the comments, are you interested in this? Are you going to pick it up? And if you're new to the channel and you enjoyed the review, then consider sticking around. Thanks to our patrons. I think while I was recording this, actually a new one popped up. If you want to join them, then please do check the top pin comment and description. As I always say, it's just Glen and I, so if we do an advert here and there, we appreciate you understanding that. All that's left to say is, for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!